Hey everyone, this is Romaine from renphotosclub.com. This is a beginner online photography tutorial platform where you can access free tutorials and just learn to improve your photography. So today I'm going to be talking about how to blur your background with only a mobile phone and on auto settings. So you don't necessarily have to have a DSLR, although if you have one that's great, but you can do this with your phone and you can do it on auto. There's no manual settings necessarily required. So basically we're talking, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, we're talking about how this image is blurring in the background here, while the rest of this front part of the image is in focus. Blur is a little bit tricky to describe, so it is in inverted commas, but you'll see why in a little bit. So let's get right into it. So these are the 4 methods that I'm going to use to make our background appear more blurred. They all have sort of different effects, and some of them are not necessarily actually blurring the background. For instance, when you zoom in, you're actually magnifying the background, so it appears more blurred, but it's not actually blurred. But yeah, so these are all methods that you can use to make your background appear more blurred, and I'm going to go into those now. So this is the first image I'm going to use. I've basically pointed the camera at some flowers and I've shot the picture. So we're trying to move away from point and shoot photography. So you are going to notice in this image that the further the background is, the more blurred it becomes. So this is the first sort of thing to start to note, is that when you're taking a photo, be aware of where your background is and how far it is from your subject. If you want it to blur, the further away it is from your subject, the more that it will blur. The next thing we're going to do is change our perspective and get a little bit closer. So when you get closer, immediately this picture on the right has a lot more impact than the one on the left, because I know exactly where I need to look. The focus is in the right place, and the background, as you can see, is now more blurred because I've gotten closer to the flower in the front that I want to photograph, and the background is appearing more blurred because I'm closer. This is because you're changing your focal plane. And you can do this. This is all on auto. All of these photos I've taken on my mobile phone and I've taken on auto. I haven't changed any settings or anything. All I've done in this particular photo is get closer to the flower. So these next 2 images basically describe a focal plane. So in our first image, you'll notice that the flower in the foreground is nicely in focus and the background is nicely blurred. Now what happens with the focal plane is wherever you're focused, then everything behind it and in front of it is going to become progressively more blurry. So the further in the background it is, the more blurry it will be, and the further in the foreground it is, the more blurry it will be from the point where you focus. So that's why in the second image I've actually changed the focus to the flower in the background, and now you can see that the flower in the foreground is now all blurred. That's because it's much further forward than the flower in the background. If you need to know how to focus with your phone, most phones do have a little square on the screen when you take the photo, and if you tap it, it'll focus on that point. And if you need to change where to focus, then you just tap somewhere else on the screen and you'll see the square comes to where you tap. So it'll be focusing on that point. It can be a little tricky sometimes. It doesn't always read it correctly, so you might need to keep trying, but it does give you live view, so you should be able to see when that point is in focus. So this is basically describing a focal plane. You can try this with anything. So if you put 3 things in a line, one behind the other at a slightly diagonal, and if you focus on each one separately, so first the one on the back and then the one in the middle and then the one in the front, you'll notice how much blur you get on those different things. Like I say, this is all just with auto settings. We're not getting involved in any of the manual settings just now, which is another way that you can increase that blur. But for now, we're just working with what we have on auto. Play around with this, and you'll start to see where the difference is. So once you understand how the focal plane works, then you can really start to play around with this and use it in your photos. You can use it intentionally and make your viewer really look at where you are focusing in your image. Where you want them to focus should always be in focus. And now you can really exaggerate the blur either in the foreground or in the background, like I have in this image. So I want you to focus very definitely on the flower in the middle, and I've framed it with this big blurred flower around it. So yeah, so that's the tutorial. I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you are not a subscriber, please do subscribe on the link. There's a little red icon on the bottom of the screen. This does help me to create more of a following, so I do thank you if you have subscribed. And click on the bell notification. I do post free tutorials on YouTube quite often, so you will have access to all of those. Then you can also access free and paid tutorials on renphotosclub.com. The website link is in the description of the video. And yeah, so like I say, there is still free tutorials there, but there's also a paid option where you can then send me work and I will be able to give you feedback on that work. Whether it is that you're struggling or you just want to improve certain things or you want to discuss something in a little bit more detail, you are more than welcome to send me images if you are a monthly subscriber or a yearly subscriber. So yes, I look forward to hopefully seeing some of your work soon. Happy photo making, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Cheers.